Hey, this is Steven Wener coming back, and we are going to kick it off here with another friend of mine, Rob Seidenwurm.
One more time. What's his name?
Rob Seidenwurm.
Seidenwurm, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you
I
got
did
it.
good.
Yeah.
I
How
know
do you
how to
spell
say
that,
these
Rob?
things.
Seidenwurm. I've spelled it many times.
I hope so.
It's German for silkworm.
Oh,
German.
nice.
All right, so there's some German.
Now
in
I
there.
have a new way to look at you.
There you go.
And you're not in silk for our listeners. But Rob is a pretty fascinating guy, actually. I think you're going to really enjoy this as well.
Okay.
Rob is, can we still call you a securities attorney? Because you're an attorney, but
I'm
you
a
started
real
off
estate
in
attorney now.
Yeah. So you started off in the securities field,
Yes.
the legality of all of that good stuff, and you have now evolved from that into a few different things that are really involved in the real estate industry, and also creating loan documents for hard money.
Sure. Yeah. No, I started off as a securities attorney in mid-'90s and doing IPO type work and working in kind of the tech boom and coming up with the documents and working with institutional documents. But the opportunity I got up in Oregon when I was working for a firm up there was for a real estate company that did lending. And they actually wanted to expand their operations, so they were raising money, getting money from investors, and I was tasked kind of as a securities attorney to come up with the securities vehicle for them to be able to do that. So kind of became a specialty of mine, and one of the things you have to do is when you're coming up with these disclosure documents to tell you about the company is do a deep dive of the company. So at that point, I wasn't that familiar with kind of the hard money business, and learned all about how non-banking lending goes and what the trigger points are, and ended up going in-house and helping run their company. So,
How did they initially find you?
well, I was working for a firm at the time, and they had this need to find a securities law. So they were a client of this law firm, and then I was hired as a securities attorney who could help them to get it to the next level, because it was essentially a small firm or a small real estate firm. And then I was brought in as a securities attorney to do that. And then from that, I pushed into to real estate. Yeah.
So talk about that evolution. So a small real estate firm brought you on to work to raise money, and then from a security standpoint, they needed all the regulations done properly, like to write up all the forms, right? Yeah,
it's a private placement document. It's a long document which essentially details all the risks to investors that you've got to go. You want to disclose everything you can so that you have informed investors, and you're only offering this to wealthy people who can afford to have these kind of investments. But the real gist of it is you take investor money, and those loans are then lent to borrowers, qualified borrowers in this business, and the investors own a piece of all these different loans so that they are well diversified. I mean, their investment's only as good as the actual real estate loans made.
Sure,
but that's part of the getting to know you process with the investors of making sure that they trust who they're dealing with.
So eventually you spun out from being a securities attorney into a real estate attorney.
Yeah, and I think the securities now is kind of a byproduct of my real estate background, because when I was hired to go in-house for this company up in Oregon, I was the CFO of the company and kind of running the investment arm of the company as well. So the securities helped me in that regard, kept them in line, but then also specialized in preparing the loan documents. And hard money loans are kind of a funny bird. They're non-bankable loans, so there's all sorts of reasons banks won't lend.
Right. So let's talk about that. Just so people understand. So hard money loan, also known as a private money loan, is a non-bank, as you've mentioned, Rob. So you're going to a lender that you couldn't walk into a normal bank or jump online maybe to a normal mortgage company to get, because for whatever reason just don't fit in that particular box that the government and or the bank has kind of set now. And so I know there's been a big demand over this last 10 years
for sure
now for what we kind of in the industry refer to maybe as non-qualified mortgages or definitely private money, hard money.
Right, and to be clear, we're talking about commercial loans, so not non-owner occupied properties that I specialize in. There's a whole lot of regulations that still do exist on owner occupied properties.
Right. Now it's crazy. That's why I don't even know any private money lenders that'll do owner occupied.
There's only a few, and you'll pay the price for it. So
right.
But there's a lot of reasons. I mean, that you can go into a hard money lender. I mean, some of them are people, who got hit by the downturn, and we do construction projects, and virtually every person who was in construction and developers who were during the downturn got their credit.
Up,
yeah,
right.
They all got beat up. That doesn't mean they're not good people. It doesn't mean they're not. But and there's a lot of money to be made in development. So if they can't get a loan at a bank, and frankly, the local banks don't want to do things like construction.
No, they don't. They don't like
$800,000 construction loan.
Right. They don't want to do any spec homes. They don't like any of that. Yeah.
No,
and that's where your company comes in place. Is that what you guys are doing now?
Well, yeah. And I, to be clear, I own a piece of a company up in Oregon, and then I represent a few companies down here in San Diego who do the same kind of deals. The company up in Oregon has been going for 4 years, and they do deals in Oregon and Washington. A couple of my groups down here do loans. A lot of loans in San Diego and Southern California, but we've done loans in about 7 or 8 states. They'll go wherever a deal makes sense. And I think that's really the key of a hard money loan from a lender's perspective of, instead of saying, does this loan check the box from a regulatory standpoint, it's, does it make financial sense to do a loan to these people?
Am I willing to take a risk with my capital based on these terms, based on this loan to value, which is the down payment and things, and on this rate of return, am I willing to do that? Yeah. And that's what we used to do years ago, right, Rob? I mean, there used to be make sense loans. Those went away when banks got carried away and started doing anybody a loan down to no money down. You don't even have to pay the interest. It was less than the interest. And once that all kind of went south, that's when the government got involved and really set these tough regulations, which allowed the private money and hard money industry to kind of take off from there.
Well, and yeah, I think it's actually a really important driver of small business now. The small builder, sometimes it's owner occupied businesses who can't show cash flow for whatever reason, or their bank has dropped them as a they've been a 20-year customer of a local bank, and then suddenly the bank said, well, we're not going to renew your loan this year because we don't really believe in your business.
Right. And a lot of those business loans and or like you're saying commercial real estate loans have some type of 5-year balloon or 10-year balloon where they're coming due. And that's what you're saying. So, if you're a client out there and you've gone to your bank or your loan's coming due, you might want to check with your bank, make sure you can still get a loan because it is tougher. And then if not, seek out a professional, somebody like, Rob and his group to place you with the right company that are doing it.
Yeah. And a lot of our deals are bridge deals. I mean, they can be as short as 6 months. I mean, we'll do fix and flip type deals if they make sense. They're harder to find nowadays. That was in vogue several years ago. But we'll also deals where, like you said, a bank is dropping somebody and they have good credit and they just need a year to find another bank to take the deal out. And so.
And that's what you're referring to as a bridge loan, where somebody you could just kind of fill that gap.
Yeah, it's a bridge to something else. Or we've had people who have business and they want to retire and they want to sell their business. That's where Steve, you might be able to help come in on this. But they're selling. They may need to sell the underlying property, but they're not running their business out of it anymore. Well, a bank isn't going to do that deal because they're not showing no profit. But they don't want to sell their big property and be forced to sell it in 3 months. It makes a lot of financial sense to maybe pay a slightly higher interest rate on a hard money loan and be able to find a better price with a
hold on to the
broker.
property,
be able to figure it out, not be rushed. Absolutely. And I think one of the fascinating things just about your diverse background as well, from starting to a securities attorney to becoming a real estate attorney and then being a partner in a fund, right, for properties in Oregon and Washington, and just being very opportunistic. But I think what a lot of people don't realize, and you can attest to this, loan documents are loan documents. But this gentleman over here, Rob, has written up several thousand loan documents, like custom creates.
Right, he's had to make them unique for that particular investor, that investment, for that borrower,
yes,
and that particular property.
Well, and 90% of it, right? 90% of them are the same, but it's really the 10% that
makes it unique.
Coming. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there are a lot of people who do private money loans, and they will do deals on form documents, the basics. And when times are good, which is most
There's
of the
no
time.
problem. It's how the market churns.
Yeah.
And then you try to actually get paid back on those loan documents that you signed. They say, oh, well, you didn't put this in there. Oh, this didn't happen. And then an attorney on the other side comes after that particular investor or that hard money lender. You know, good point. Because they went with the basic bullet point loan documents.
Yeah. I mean, the number one factor when you're doing a hard money loan is the security, the underlying, the real estate, right? And protecting that. So if your loan, so the number one thing from your loan document should be protecting that ability to get at the security. Whereas in banks, it's, well, do they have the ability to pay it back? Do they have the ability to make all these payments? Those are all factors, but the number one thing when you're a hard money lender is, do I have a piece of real estate that is going to more than pay off my loan if
something happens and this borrower can't pay? Can I foreclose, take over the property, and sell this property to get paid back?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And it may sometimes, real estate attorney it's not always. I really do enjoy the fact that each of these deals is unique. We never get the same deal twice, and that's why I like dealing with my clients and my partners.
Yeah, it keeps it interesting.
Absolutely.
But I think it's pretty fascinating that you're involved in a fund, you're writing these deals, you're really tied into that part. And more in my world, it's more of a niche type in the real estate marketplace that a lot of people aren't exposed to unless they need to find you. And then if they need to find you, who do you even go to, right? So it's really also about understanding reputation.
Sure.
So one of the things that we're going to come back to after the break is just how everybody can find the two of you, both Rob and Dave, for the local and for your business. And if anybody's interested, the fund has also been performing phenomenally.
It's been great.
It's been
You
great.
got a grin like you got some money in there.
No, I don't.
He does, but he's got that grin,
I don't.
doesn't he?
I don't. I do not. But we'll be back after this break. I'm Steven Wener, Whissel Realty, 1170 AM, The Answer.